Welcome back to BrandsTalk, the first episode this year. And at this point, I'm wishing you a successful and joyful year 2022. So, for everyone joining the first time, BrandsTalk is a show to help you develop and grow your brand in a more authentic and sustainable way locally and globally. Whether it is your personal brand or company brand, your product or service level brand. You learn from thought leaders from different parts of the world, from CEOs, business owners, managers, experts who tell their brand stories and share valuable first-hand insights. My name is Brigitte Bojkowszky. I'm the founder and owner of Brigitte Brands. It's a branding strategy boutique offering online courses, workshops, and one-on-one sparrings. I help my clients and students craft meaningful strategies that effectively elevate their brands to unleash their full potential and shine. My motto: together we go deep and bring the brilliance out of you. So let's get started and dive with me into the world of brands. I'm excited to have Cindy Wahler as my valued guest today. Cindy is a leadership consultant with broad based experience in positioning organizations for success within both the private and public sectors. She works with senior executives at the CEO, EVP, and SVP levels, developing leaders who can execute organizational strategies and drive business results. She offers a wide range of corporate leadership programs, including leadership assessment, executive coaching, succession planning, and talent management. Cindy is also an advisor of a number of boards on CEO succession. Cindy is a regular contributor to Forbes, Huffington Post, CNN, the chief executive officer, and an author of her recent book on leadership entitled 20 Effective Habits for Mastery at Work. She writes and speaks on a variety of leadership topics that include empowering women, attracting top talent, leading remote teams, imposter syndrome, and executive presence. Cindy earned a doctorate in clinical psychology from the University of Ottawa, and she is a certified organizational psychologist with a major in leadership development. I warmly welcome Cindy Wahler. Welcome to Brent's Talk.
Thank you so much. It's an honor, a privilege, and I'm excited to partner with you today. Thank you, Bridget.
So I'm so happy to have you as my guest on my show today, Cindy. I'm so excited to learn and discuss about our topic today, the concept of self advocacy, the ability to speak up for ourselves and the things that are important to us. So, before we do that, Cindy, I would like you to tell us a little bit about your background and, about your journey that brought you right there where you are now.
For sure. So, like most people, my journey has not been a straight line. I started off studying clinical psychology, as you suggested, and I built a very successful practice in clinical psychology. And then, though, I come from a long line of entrepreneurs, family business owners in the area of manufacturing, electrical, and also food industry. And so I grew up around the dinner table, around profit and loss, around capital gains, around talent discussions that, in fact, as a child and an adolescent, didn't really interest me. But I did, of course, absorb some things. And I would say that my very first job was in leadership development, and I was an employee in a financial services sector. And I would say that I failed as an employee. And the reason I was a failure as an employee was because I think that for me, coming from self employed entrepreneurs, it was challenging to fit within a process driven environment. And I didn't have the maturity. And so when I got impatient and wanted things to go faster and wanted others to adopt change, I got frustrated rather than thinking about how could I partner? How could I actually, as you say, advocate for my point of view? So I quit and I decided to go out on my own. And so I was only an employee in my entire career, 25 years plus, for 3 years. And when I went out on my own, or wanted to go out on my own, it was interesting the feedback that I received. And so there are many that said, that's not possible, or you're too young, or it's too hard, or you're going to fail. And so there were others that, of course, were supportive, but it was probably a constant theme every time I've pivoted and changed and done different things in my career or my personal life, where there are two camps, one that says, go for it. We believe in you. You're going to be successful. And then the other that's, I think sometimes people project their own fears around this is too risky.
Exactly, they do so. So, nevertheless, it is a bold step to start your own business and to go into solopreneurship. So, with doing that, what was your vision with that business and your big why? What makes you inspire others?
Well, because my degree originally was in clinical psychology, as you suggest, I really like to understand what motivates people, what drives people. And I always thought the question around are leaders born or made is a dated question. Sure, there are natural attributes that we come to the table with, but I think a lot of it, because the world is so complex and ever changing, that we do have to learn skills and then undo skills and add additional skills. So my vision was, how do I bring out the best in people within the business environments that they're in? And my vision was that I was going to be able to look at two segments: those who are high potential leaders who are eager to learn and aspire to make a difference, and then seasoned leaders who in fact have been successful but need to learn how to adjust to a different mandate, different scope, different set of stakeholders. And how do you sell your vision or your platform to a complex set of stakeholders? So that was my vision. And in terms of being able to add value, I thought that I didn't question that as much, from the point of view is that I thought I will learn with my clients. My clients will teach me how to be better, which is what they've done my entire career.
Yeah.
And I like to surround myself with experts, because that's how I learn and that's how I can continue to be inspired. So, for example, there was one client that I have, and I'll never forget this. He was a consultant with one of our major financial services accounting firms, and he was a year before retirement. And he was very, very senior partner. And he said to me, Cindy, I'd like if you would coach me. And I said, you want me to coach you? I said, I think it should be the other way around. And I said, also, I'm intrigued by 1 year, you have 1 year left to go. Why would you actually request a coach at this point in your career? And he said to me something fascinating, Bridget. He said, because I want to figure out how I can impart my knowledge and my intel and my expertise on people around me, and I need your help. It's not a role that I actually played formally. Of course, I've done it. And so this gentleman sticks in my mind because he's so inspiring and basically said, there's always something to learn, and I need to know how to best impact and influence people with the talents that I have.
Wow, that's such a beautiful story. So let's stick with your clients. I'm sure you have different kinds of clients. So, what are their major pain points, and what desires are you exactly satisfying, other than that of the story you have just told us? Yeah,
Sure.
what is the transition that you help with?
Sure. So back to the topic for today, it is around self advocacy. So there are a lot of people, as you know, who are extraordinarily bright, highly talented, and very adept at their technical skills. So they're hired as a graphic designer, or they're hired as a web developer, or software design, or a chemist, whatever their discipline is. But in terms of being able to promote themselves around why it is they add value, it's hard for a lot of people. We might have grown up in an environment where being humble and being self-effacing is a value set. But in the business world and in much of society, we're rewarded for being noisy. We're rewarded for being loud. And so my goal and my vision, my motivation is to help elevate people so that they can maintain their level of humbleness, seen as being ego balanced, but at the same time being experts at the table. So lots of times Bridget, clients will call me and say, there are people at the table that are smarter than me, they're brighter than me, they're more talented than me. And so there's a self diminishing aspect to their leadership. where they make themselves invisible. And so it's my job to help really magnify their talents and allow them to feel that they do have something to offer.
Okay, that's beautiful. I think a lot of people are in this situation. So if we let's say go a little bit deeper into the concept of self-advocacy, could you explain that, what it exactly is and means, and also why this is so important to understand?
For sure. So I think for most of us, we are, to our defense, when we start our careers, you are an individual contributor and you are given a mandate that's generally quite narrow. And here are your tasks, here are your objectives, here are your timelines. And if you come in on time and if you come in on budget and you deliver, then you're rewarded, right? And then you are given a great performance appraisal, review, maybe a bonus, and eventually you elevate and go to the next level. But what we don't understand, and what probably is not explained to many of us, is that our relationships are crucial. So we have two sets of currency, your technical currency and your relationship currency. And in order to have relationship currency, then you need to be able to advocate around how I can make a difference to that person. And so that self advocacy means that you don't have to have all the answers, that you have to know enough, that you're prepared to fail, make a mistake, learn from that, but in fact have a point of view. And so I'll give you an example. One of my clients last year wanted to be promoted, and her executive thought she was ready to be promoted. But his peers said, when they did a calibration meeting, we don't think she's ready. And every time she comes to the table, she brings her direct reports and showcases them, which is great, and spreads the accolades to the team. But we don't understand where she's driving change, how she's driving change, and how she's really an innovator in all this. Maybe it's exclusively her team. We don't know.
Mm.
So I gave her the feedback, and she said, I'm very frustrated because we're told it's all about the team and don't have too much ego. And I said, you're right, except there has to be a balance. So what we did was I had her present the I in it. In other words, how she led the team, how she created alignment, what her ideas were. And over time, then they had a better idea around the differences she made and some of the pain points, as you say, that she had to negotiate because there isn't alignment when you're dealing with complex projects. There's different egos, there's different areas of power, dominance, different ways of looking at things. But the ability to bring things together means that you do have to advocate for your point of view and other point of view. So
Yeah.
that's part of what I think self-advocacy is about.
Okay. So
And the other part has to
yeah,
do with, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead, please. There's so many questions.
The other part has to do with having confidence that what you know is, in fact, what, when we talk about good is good enough, that things don't have to be perfect. So you have data points, and what we do need to rely on is our gut and our judgment based on how many years we've been in the seat or how many years of expertise we have, even though there may be other people who are more informed. And again, I remember an executive telling me, well, I need your client, my direct report, to weigh in. And I said to him, your boss, your manager is saying you're not weighing in enough. And he said, well, my expertise is in this swim lane and my peers have other expertise. And I said, no. I said, your expertise runs across the team, across all the segments. And so you should be able to extrapolate some of your knowledge to the other segments and weigh in. Otherwise, you're going to be seen as that subject matter expert, which is fine if that's what you want for your career. But if you want to impact the enterprise more broadly, then you need to be able to speak more expansively. And so for him, he had the knowledge, but he didn't have the confidence. And I said, if you get challenged, that's part of it, your ability to stand up to strong personalities.
Hmm. So, what activities or actions in developing self-advocacy skills, do you advise those that are mid-career and become their own boss, start their own business? Do you have some pieces of advice here? And one more
For
question.
sure.
One more question.
Yes, of course.
a topic that is mostly or mostly affects women? Is there kind of a gender issue as well?
Sure. Okay, so let's go to the first part, and I'll interweave it with your second question, which are very important questions that you're asking me, Bridget. So I like to look at the population, even though we can't really put people in groups because we have a bell curve. Not everyone fits in a group, but broadly speaking, I think there are two groups of people. There are those who play not to lose. And what I mean by that is if you play not to lose, then you are usually very planful, organized, methodical, and very thorough. And so you mitigate risk, which creates a lot of comfort and a lot of predictability. So if you do that, then probably for your career or as a personality, you might be safe in life. But if you want to be a change agent, if you want to be creative, if you want to be innovative and make a difference, then you need to shift to the second group, which is to play to win. And when you play to win, that means you're prepared to take a loss, you're prepared to fail, and it is uncomfortable and it's soul crushing, and it can, drop you to your knees in tears because you fail. But if you play to win, you also increase your chances of winning. And so part of it is to back to your point around strategy and tips, it's around thinking about stepping back. What is it that you want from your career? What kind of impact that you want to make? And are you prepared to shift your mindset? That's part of it. I think the other part is when we talked about imposter syndrome briefly when you're introducing me, the challenge is that a lot of people compare themselves to others. And so one of the strategies I say is stop comparing yourself, that you're in the seat because you have value. Your organization didn't hire you because they felt bad for you or felt sorry for you. They believe that you add value. So when we compare ourselves, it's a losing proposition. We will always fail. There's always brighter, more attractive, smarter, more talented people out there, rather than saying, I am good enough. And I'll give you a personal example. When I started out in my career, one of the things that I did was I partnered with a major management consulting firm, globally well known. And my role was to be a team facilitator with seasoned executives. I didn't have the opportunity to stand in front of the room to present some of the content. So I went up to the lead and I said, May I? I would love to do this. And I was pretty nervous. I'd never done it before. And he said, I'm sorry, Cindy, you can't. And I said, why? And he said, well, you're on the smaller size and you will not be able to impact. So I didn't win the genetic lottery. I'm 5'1", and it was crushing because it's not something that I can change or control. And I thought, well, that's it then. My career is not over, but limited. I will never be able to speak to you, to present, to do the things that I love to do. But I thought about it and I thought, how could I allow one person really have that kind of input and change or control my world? And so when I reviewed it in my mind, I thought, I'm not going to give him the power. And that's why when we talk about advocacy, it's do not lose your agency, because when you keep your agency, then you're in control. And so one of the things that I teach also when you talk about strategies is that you could expect at the table that people will challenge you because they like to spar, or they are motivated to create tension, or they're arrogant, or they think they're right. So you need to go in expecting that. And then you need to figure out how to regroup. And one of the things is that we sometimes we keep repeating the same argument or the same solution, and what you need to do is find a different way to present the similar information so that you can influence the person. The other strategy I think about is that it's important to socialize your ideas in advance. So before you get to the major meeting or the presentation, think about who probably are going to be your naysayers. Who do you need to meet with to get them on board? Who are going to be your advocates? Pick one strong person and ask them in advance, I need you, if you're comfortable, to weigh in at the meeting, because I don't believe everybody's aligned, and I believe that I'm going to have challenges and difficulties. So could you help me out? And then the next strategy is to take that person and say, okay, you know, Bob or Susan is being very challenging with me. I want you, John, to go to Bob or Susan because they respect you, they listen to you, and maybe you can help me by speaking to them. So it's really leveraging your stakeholders and your partners to your cause, because none of us are successful by ourselves. I don't know anyone who's been a success as a singular person. And so part of that advocacy is being able to partner effectively and pull on the power and influence of others.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for giving us the example of your own experience. And I think, especially for those, it is important that suffer from this imposter syndrome, because it's so much harder, overcoming this barrier to speak up for yourself when you are coming from such a low self worth. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So, Cindy, as a psychologist and leadership consultant, you are not only a regular contributor to Forbes, Huffington Post, CNN, and chief executive officer. You have written more than 100 publications. You've been featured on podcasts, on live streams, and you are also a renowned author of the book 20 Effective Habits for Mastery at Work. Yeah. It's a book for leaders in the early stages of building their career or are keen to develop more advanced skills that takes them to the next level. I love this book because it's a bite-sized. Each of the bite-sized book, I would say. Each of the 20 habits are short chapters, and what I love, there are action steps included. So it's really easy to read and reflect and learn and grow from. Would you like to, for the audience, they might not know the book yet, would you like to go a little bit deeper into what exactly they can expect and learn from?
Sure. So you just gave a great summary. So the objective in writing the book is that I wanted to share some of the insights from my own clients. In a way, it was a thank you to my clients who've helped shape and build my career, because without them, we wouldn't be sitting here. And it's their insights around what's effective. And that's part of it. The other part, to your point, is that I wanted to make sure that it was practical. And so if you're reading a chapter on self-promotion, what do we mean by self-promotion, and how do you actually promote yourself? What do you need to do? Or if it means, how do you accept feedback so that you're be able to be open to being a more effective leader? So those are the points. And I probably could have written a book on hundreds of leadership traits, but I tried to pick out the core ones. And I think that my objective was to help leaders both at the beginning of their career and along the spectrum wherever they are in their career, and that it's something that you come back to depending on where your challenges are in the particular role that you might be in.
Hmm. There's one specific quote, habit number 16, persisting. And I quote you, Cindy: failing up and making mistakes is an essential part of developing. I love that. Could you please elaborate on that a little bit? Because I think it's very, very helpful.
Sure. So, as I mentioned before, at each step of my career life, when I wanted to do something and take myself out of the comfort zone, that I think out of good hearted nature, people around me would say, you need to be careful because those are high risk stakes. If you go into clinical psychology, you'll have to be dealing with human lives, and that's a big responsibility. And then when I went into business, well, there's lots of competition. Are you sure you want to do that? And then recently, when I embarked on wanting to write my book, the feedback was, well, there's so many books on leadership. Are you sure you're going to be able to publish it? Are you sure there's a space for you? And so, in terms of trying things, it is true the saying that, it takes many years to be an overnight success. And so the idea is that if you put yourself out there and you fail, you learn a bunch of things. One, you learn that the walls don't come crashing down on you. even though it's hard, you can get up. And then you need to be self reflective. Okay, what do I learn by that? How do I be better, better? And so in writing my book, of course, it had many, many, many revisions and iterations and feedback from many people in my world to help cultivate the best book and the best target audience. And so I think failing up means that with each failure, you get better, you perfect your craft, you become more of an expert. If you don't fail, going back to my earlier point, then you stay safe. And I think that you don't have a level of curiosity that allows you to explore and then allows you to change. And that failure helps then shape you. I think it allows you to be tougher, and you can still be vulnerable, but tough to say, okay. And I always say to myself, what is the worst that could happen? So when I went out on my own and hung out my shingle, I thought, well, even though I failed as an employee, if I fail as a self employed person, then I'll go back and learn how to be a better employee. That's the absolute worst that could happen. I'm not going to land up on the street. So I try to do the math that way and think about that. And that's why I think failing up actually is a way for you to be more achievement oriented and more successful.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the same. That's how I feel too, because I always tell myself, as a former flight attendant, what is the worst thing that can happen? I will not crash and I will not die. So I will stay alive. The only thing that can happen, I learn. So it might be a detour, but failures help us really grow out of this comfort zone, or make this comfort zone bigger and then go from there and make the next step. So,
That's right.
yeah.
That's right. Absolutely. I think you always have to be asking why, and you always have to be pushing forward. And it's also important not to accept the status quo. So even if something's working, the other thing when you ask me about self advocacy, a lot of clients have pressure around, well, I'm told I need to be a change agent, and it seems overwhelming. It seems, how am I going to change the world? And I say to them, actually, I said, there are those that change the world, but there are many things that you can do to help the world or your team better. Maybe it's finding cost savings. Maybe it's improving efficiencies and how to do work better, or how to help, write a piece of software that's going to generate more revenue, something like that. And when we make it smaller, then it's not as overwhelming around how do I make that difference.
Hmm. Okay, great. Yeah. So, if you had to narrow it down and select one or two key leadership attributes, what would you recommend aspiring leaders to focus on?
So I think I learned this by failure. And so I now, in hindsight, I want to offer my counsel and my leadership coaching. And that has to do with what we're talking about, which is self promotion. And so there is a way to do it. I call it humble confidence. There's a way to promote yourself around having your ideas, around having a voice at the table. And I'll say to people, they'll sometimes say to me, my clients, well, somebody talked over me, or we're now on the next agenda item and I didn't get to speak. And I say to them, bring it back, interrupt them back. It's okay to interrupt. In a business setting, everybody's cutting each other off all the time. It is common practice, and say that you didn't have a chance to finish your point. So part of what I think is very important is self-promotion, and the other part is what we're talking about is taking risks, because when you take risks, as you say, then you learn, and then you surround yourself with an entrepreneurial mindset. You don't need to be self-employed to have an entrepreneurial mindset. An entrepreneurial mindset means that you're taking risks, that you don't want to just accept the status quo, and you're creating discomfort. And it's human nature not to tolerate or not to want discomfort. But from discomfort comes what you had referred to as growth and learning. And so those are some of the two sort of very important leadership attributes that I think are important if you want to be successful with your career.
Oh, yes. I remind myself all the time when I'm in a discomfort. I know, Bridget, it's a good thing because you learn. You are in a growth state. So that gives
Exactly.
comfort then again.
Exactly. And I'll say to myself all the time, why am I doing this? Why did I do this to myself? Why am I presenting? Why did I, agree to go on a stage with hundreds of
Yeah.
people? It's creating anxiety for me. And I think, oh my God, I can't do this. And will I let the audience down? I go through every of those thoughts and all those self-doubts each and every time. It doesn't go away. And as a psychologist, that some level of anxiety is important to keep us alert. And the other is that, the audience wants you to win. People are in your court. And that's what I think about that, in attending today and being with you, that your attendees and listeners are interested in getting knowledge. And so that helps me also have courage to be on your show and to contribute to your very worthwhile and important platform that you have.
Oh, thank you so much. So I think that is also interesting for our audience. The next question I would really like to ask you: what is one of the most common mistakes people make in their careers when it comes to self promotion? Do you have, let's say, a short list of three, four, five mistakes?
Sure. Well, I think so. For some, they are showboating. So they're basically speaking up about what they do, and they're showing off. And by showing off, then they usually alienate people around them because they are the smartest person in the room, and there is a uncomplimentary, unattractive quality to that, and they're not team players. So that's one of the things
Mhm.
that people do that they need to avoid around how they get ahead in their careers. And I think the other thing is we're sort of talking about is that make sure that you surround yourself, figure out who are the decision makers, who are the power brokers, who are the influencers, and then develop an alignment with them, and maybe volunteer your services, your talent, and work on a project, and have work on an initiative with them so that they get to see the value you bring and they're able to promote. And so when I talked about stakeholders before, there is a difference between being a mentor and having a sponsor. And so mentor is someone that's going to mentor you and support you generally and give you general career counsel. A sponsor is somebody that's prepared to risk their reputation and their career by saying, you know what, I need you to think about promoting Bridget because I believe in Bridget. And so the next time an opportunity comes up where there's a seat at the table or a role, I want Bridget to be in that role. And so you need to think about in your career that you have a sponsor who's going to vet and go to bat for you, because it's very difficult in the sea of competitive players to be able to have that recognition by yourself.
Okay, thank you so much for that advice. So, I would like to also ask you something about personal branding because I think that ties very well into the topic of self advocacy. So, as being and doing all what you are, you also have become really, you are a thought leader and with a renowned reputation in your specific area. So, you have become a strong personal brand in your field. What does it mean to you to be a personal brand and your authentic self as a personal brand? Would love to have your opinion.
Oh, I love this question. It's one of the best questions I've been asked. So that's terrific. I think for me, it means being able to be direct and transparent. And my clients will say to me that the value I bring is like holding up a mirror. And so they'll say to me, it's ouch, that it's not easy because I hold up a mirror, I create a reflection of themselves, and that is sometimes painful to see because
Mhm.
I think most of us show up with good intent, right intent, right? How do I be a good person, coworker, partner, employee, direct report, boss each day? We show up with that intent, but we may not be doing that and we don't realize it. So when I hold up the mirror, the value that I bring is that I will be direct and I will tell you. So another example is one of my clients said to me, Cindy, he shoots, he scores. I said, I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean. I don't understand that reference. What do you mean? And he said to me, can you speak faster? You're explaining things in such a slow way. So I said to him, okay, that's fair feedback, but you do know you were referred to me for your listening skills. And so he said to me, he thanked me after, towards the end of the coaching engagement, and he said, if I would have said that maybe to somebody else, they would have, shut down or retired or quiet. But, you took it in stride and you challenged me back. And that's what I value. So when we're talking about my personal brand, it is, to your excellent adjective, bringing my authentic, open, direct, transparent way, and then giving practical tips and strategies. And I'll say to my clients, I said, here are some strategies. You need to come back to me and tell me, Cindy, that was a bust. It didn't work out, and we'll try something else, or that was effective. And then we keep pivoting until we get it right with whatever change they need to affect.
That's beautiful. So, do you have any like helpful advice of how we can strengthen our personal brand, and especially for those that are transitioning from a corporate employer into solopreneurship?
So these are great questions as well. It is as simple as it sounds, it's actually complex. To me, the advice is to just be you. So being you means that if you understand your value set, what's important to you, then you have credibility and you build trust. If you try to aspire to something else or somebody else, we can look to those attributes and admire those attributes and work on them, but you shouldn't really take somebody else's brand because it's unnatural. And so think about what's important to you, what your values are, and then convey those values around what it is that you believe in. And when you do that, I think then you can more easily build trust, you're credible, and you're not seen as mirroring someone else or speaking from some academic book or some research paper. And I do remember, one of my supervisors was very, very extremely smart, very intellectual, very cerebral, very empirical and research oriented, but I had a hard time connecting to him. He was very precise and very accurate because his personality and his real self never came out. It was shrouded in this sense of accuracy and an empirical kind of framework. And so it, for some, it may work, but for me, it created a distancing effect. And so when we're talking about brand, it's who are you as a person, and then how are you showing up and conveying that. One of the things that I think is critical is that I'll say to people, okay, once you've figured out what your brand is, then do a little 360. Go to your stakeholders, the ones who are going to be critical, not your fans, and go, not your usual cast of characters, and ask them to describe to you what your brand is, and listen carefully. And is it aligned with what you want your brand to be? If it is, fantastic. If it isn't, and there's a gap, then go to that person and say, okay, so what is it that I need to do? If you think that I need to be more motivational or more inspirational, what am I not doing? What does more motivational look like? And so that you get some examples. And that's a way to get some just in time feedback around how to enhance your brand and how to align what you think your brand is versus how you're showing up.
Yeah, the self concept is very often different, yeah, from how people perceive you. And it's so important to get this external feedback, not necessarily from your best friends, but from everyone else in your surrounding. Yeah, um, business partners, friends, everyone that you are somehow directly connected with. So that's really important. It's a little bit an uncomfortable feeling to ask the people, but still, then you really see what is the gap in between, and you see what your strengths are and what you really need to improve. Yeah. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and how that ties into your values, who you are, who you want to be, and that helps you to really truly live by the values that you are yeah, the values that you have to find for yourself in that particular moment, because they can also change over time. You're evolving. Your value set that you want to live by are also evolving over time. Yeah.
Absolutely. You're right. And seems like the opposite to me would be highly stressful to not live your values or to live something that isn't you. It seems unnatural to me and very stressful. And so why not figure out who you are and what you're about and then be that? And then you surround yourself with people who are aligned with that. And those that are not, that's okay. There's enough other people to go around.
That's okay, absolutely. To also let go of things that do not serve you. Yeah.
Exactly.
And
And
that,
as you say, Bridget, maybe over time, over life, we do let go of things that
yeah,
don't serve us and
yeah.
people. And so it changes over time, which is
And
natural.
and make free for that what serves you, and surround yourself with people that really are on the same page. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, so we are at the end of our show, Cindy, and I would like to do a quick word wrap with you, like I do with everyone
Okay.
else. So,
Now this is adding tension for me. All right. I'm in the hot seat.
so I will start with, of course, self-advocacy.
So confidence, self-assuredness, direct, transparent, openness,
Okay, mindset.
positive, open, fluid, pivoting,
Okay, women.
collaboration, partnering, equity, diversity,
Leadership.
strength, influence, impact, making a difference.
Wow. And last but not least, brands.
Excellent. Brands. Okay. So, right in front of us, I would say right now, that's current and topical. I would say Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and Netflix, and Spotify. So, those would be some Microsoft, Apple. Those would be some of the brands that come to mind. So, to me, brands that have been able to pivot and be agile. And here's one maybe parting thought. You know, when we ask what the goal of businesses are, most often business leaders, owners, shareholders would say to make the most money as possible. I think the answer should really be is to be able to stay in business forever.
That's a beautiful answer.
So
Absolutely.
if you stay in business forever, that means you're able to change, understand your consumer, listen to your consumer, and basically be adapt to the changing landscape and to technology and demands that are required.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Cindy,
Okay.
for listeners who would like to get in contact with you, where would they find you?
So on my platform, my website, cindywahler.com, as well as on LinkedIn. And so if you Google me, you will easily have access to both those platforms. And I'm also on Instagram as Cindy Wahler too is my handle.
Okay, great. I will put everything into the show notes. Thank you so much for being my guest today on BrandsTalk, Cindy. It was really a pleasure having you here and learning from how important it is to speak up for ourselves and for all the advice on how to improve it. Thank you so much, Cindy.
Thank you, Bridget. I enjoyed it tremendously. It's been a privilege.
Thank you. So, thanks to all for joining Brand's Talk today. Please leave your comments. I would love to hear from you. You can also listen to this show as a podcast on your go. Just follow Brand's Talk on your favorite platform. If you're interested in learning more about my services, head over to my website, brigittebrands.com. Right now, the doors are open for enrollment to my signature online branding course, Own Your Brilliance, Make Your Brand Shine. This course is for you if you want to unlock your full potential and build your authentic personal brand and company brand with confidence and clarity of a proven roadmap. I put it in the comments as well. I hope you will join me again when we dive into the world of brands, live or by having me in your earbuds, walking the talk. Bye for now. Let's shine. You deserve it.